Starting your credit card search with NerdWallet? Smart. Using their tools to finally end that search successfully? Even smarter. Filter for the features you care about, access the latest deals, and add your top cards to a comparison table to make smarter decisions. All powered by the Nerds' expert reviews of over 400 credit cards. Head over to nerdwallet.com/learn more to find smarter credit cards, savings accounts, mortgage rates, and more. NerdWallet. Finance smarter. NerdWallet Compare, Inc., NMLS 1617539.
Fall is calling, and Wayfair has everything you need to welcome the new season into your space. Gretch, for us, fall means time to use our fire pit. We love sitting outside around our fire pit at night, but we did not have any outdoor tables to put a drink on. So we visited the site, and there was a huge selection of outdoor tables, which were exactly what we needed. I ordered 2, and they have transformed our fire pit experience.
No matter your style or budget, Wayfair is the go-to destination for everything autumn. Anything you need for the entryway, dining table, kitchen, and more. It has a huge selection of fall essentials like seasonal decor, bakeware, fire pits like you, and more. Wayfair makes it easy with fast and free shipping, even on the big stuff. They'll even help you set it up. Get ready for the season of change. Visit wayfair.com or get the Wayfair mobile app. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Hello, we are here for More Happier, a podcast where we get more happier. Some happier listening with a looser vibe. Today, we're sharing my interview with comedians and best friends Jessica St. Clair and Diane Raphael on their podcast, The Deep Dive. Each week, these two brilliant, hilarious women take a deep dive into their real lives and discuss everything from how to pursue joy amidst the bonkersness of motherhood to family, grief, and loss. Oh, listen, I loved this conversation. I know you know who these two women are.
Oh, yes, Gretchen. I love them. They are very good friends with Casey Wilson and Danielle Snyder, who co-host one of my all-time favorite podcasts, Bitch Sesh. And I was such a huge Grace and Frankie fan. And Diane Raphael wore the best clothes on Grace and Frankie. And I have to shout out our costume designer from the Fix and Fantasy Island pilot, because she was also the costume designer on Grace and Frankie.
Oh, and then Jessica St. Clair has been in shows like Veep, which is amazing. Weeds. It was so much fun talking to them. I had such a great time. I'm excited to share the conversation. Here it is.
I'm a huge fangirl.
Yes.
Huge.
So deep divers, we were so excited. If you don't already know her, which you probably do, but Gretchen Rubin is with us today. She is one of the most influential, thought-provoking observers of happiness and human nature. She is known for her ability to convey complex ideas from science to literature to stories from her own life with levity and clarity. She is the author of many a best-selling book. These are going to sound familiar to you. The Happiness Project, Better Than Before, The Four Tendencies, which have sold millions of copies in over 30 languages. But her most recent book, which I'd love to talk about with her, is Life in 5 Senses. She's also host of the very popular podcast Happier with Gretchen Rubin and founder of the award-winning Happier app, which helps people track their happiness, boosting habits. And I am so excited that she is with us today. Welcome, Gretchen.
Hello, I'm so happy to be talking to you two.
Oh my God. Gretchen, I have to tell you, I found you in one of the deepest, darkest times in my life. And I read The Happiness Project and I did all of the things. And I am here to tell you that they all worked. Now, of course, it's hard to keep all of them up, but the one that I loved the most is that you said to go all out on holidays, random holidays, Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day. Anything you can celebrate, you celebrate. And so I have in my garage, it's like a party city. And I take out the box and I go bananas. And I got to tell you, just that simple thing changed my family forever.
Oh, I know. I'm a huge fan of food dye. Like I dye peanut butter black. I dye milk green. Yeah. But Party City, yeah, you can get a lot of celebratory swag for not much money. But it's funny, right? How it does just lift this. It elevates the atmosphere of your home.
Well, and I love
say
about what you
too,
sorry, go ahead, June.
I think the interesting moment we're in right now, today's August 12th when we're recording, is I'm actually not preparing for a holiday.
Yeah, which is nice too.
It is, but I feel a little rudderless.
Well, there's
You know
Labor
what I
Day.
mean? Because
there's Labor Day.
there's Labor Day, but that's not something I can necessarily decorate.
That's what
for.
you think. Gretchen would say otherwise.
Well, here's my take on Labor Day, how to use Labor Day, which is to use it as not so much with the platters and the food dye, but use it as a chance to reflect on your work life. Because Labor Day, because things that we can do at any time, we often do at no time. And so you never sort of step back and ask the big questions like, do I need to learn a new skill? Do I need to update my resume?
Is it time for a 4-day work week?
Is it time for a 4-day work week? Do I need to deal with a ring light? Whatever it might be. Is my background hideous? Do I need to finally figure it out? Somebody I know had worked from home for 2 years before she got a printer. She was like going out to a store to get a printer.
Sounds like me. She was
I
going to
understand
Kinko's.
Right. And you think, well, you know what? You could probably get a printer and it would add a lot to your work life, make your life a lot easier. So that's one way to use Happier Labor Day. It's not as much fun as thinking about new ways to celebrate Groundhog Day, but
which is fun.
It is a useful way to use a holiday for your own, to make your life happier, healthier, more productive, and more creative.
Can I just say something on the subject of printers and your friend? And I want to really support her because I have actually thought this many, many times, which is we've made so many giant strides technologically, except for the area of printers. And I understand not wanting to get a printer because they're bulky. Where do you put them?
Yeah.
They have to be plugged in. They're connected via Wi-Fi. There's maintenance, and they also never seem to work. There's going to be a problem with your printer. I feel like on average, every other print. And you know what I mean? And so I'm like,
leave it to the professionals.
Yeah. I'm like, I understand going to a FedEx Kinko's because it ultimately might save you time and stress. But I just want to shout out that friend because I do understand that. And I have a very complicated relationship with my own printer, which is so far away from where I'm sitting with my computer that it's almost easier for me to go to a FedEx.
So I make the voyage through the guest room or into the closet.
I deeply understand her.
So, Elizabeth, that was such a fun conversation. What did you think about the discussion of printers? Do you have a printer?
I have a printer, but Gretchen, it is, touch and go at any given day, whether it works or not. I totally agree that it's like, why can't we just get a printer that always works?
It's the little things. And we'll be right back with more from my conversation with Jessica St. Clair and June Diane Raphael and how to navigate stress.
Gretchen, as we shift our wardrobes from summer to fall, you and I are both going to be putting our Quince cashmere sweaters into heavy rotation.
Yes.
They are so soft, greatest colors. And then, Gretch, I intend to put a new Quince dress into rotation. I saw my friend Mindy wearing this great black dress the other day, and it was the Quince tiered maxi dress, and I am going to get one for myself.
Yeah, well, shifting our wardrobes from summer to fall is always a challenge, but luckily Quince offers timeless and high-quality items that can ensure our wardrobes stay fresh and we don't blow the budget. And the best part is all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. Make switching seasons a breeze with Quince's high-quality closet essentials. Go to quince.com/Gretchen for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/Gretchen to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/Gretchen. Now we're back to my conversation with Jessica St. Clair and Diane Raphael from the Deep Dive podcast.
Gretchen, I'm going to just monopolize you. So, June, you got your printer bit out, and now you can sit pretty.
I had a few things to say to Gretchen
you can
as
sit pretty.
well.
I need Gretchen more than you do. And Gretchen, so this is a private session between Gretchen and I.
Excellent.
Okay?
Love it.
Gretchen, I am currently in a moment of... well, I said it was a staycation in the underworld, but I'm under a lot of stress in terms of family stuff and just the idea of time running out and making the most of the moments we have and staying in the moment. And also dealing with large life questions, right? Yeah. And I guess my question to you, since you have such a great take on how to use simple things in your life to increase your happiness, how does one do that when you are, let's say, maybe ruminating about the bigger questions in life and feel kind of crushed by that responsibility, and it's making it hard for you to enjoy your day-to-day?
That is really hard. There's no simple solution, but there are some things that I can suggest. Okay. So one is if you are ruminating and like you're constantly worried,
yes.
One thing to do, and this sounds kind of funny, is to schedule time to worry. And depending on how many worries you have, maybe you need it once a day, maybe you need it every other day, maybe you need it once a week, but you set aside time to worry. You sit down, you wait for a time when you feel calm, like don't do it right before you go to bed. When you're not hungry, you're not rushed, get out, pen and paper, whatever, if you need to write yourself a list or remind yourself of something to do, and you just worry. And what this does is then you don't have to worry in all the other times. So when you starting to worry and think through, do I have to do this? What about that? You just say, it's not time to worry. But I have time to worry. I'm not pushing this to the side. I'm not denying that I need to worry, because often worry is really important. Like we need to have those thoughts and make those plans. It's often very useful, or at least it's sort of unavoidable. But then you keep it from taking over all of your time, because you're like, I have the time for this, and so I will not do it at these other times. And then that kind of gives you more relief, because then you're not constantly just have that sand in your eyeball that is just keeping you restless and overwhelmed feeling. So that's one thing.
Is it also like your brain, like your brain is a computer, and it's like, we got to get to this, we got to get to this, we got to get to this. And it's like when you're calming your brain down because you're saying, no, we're going to do that.
No,
it's just not right now.
That is a great point. And here's a follow on exactly the point that you raised. If you wake up in the middle of the night, because you have racing thoughts. So you're exactly right. The brain is going over and over something because it's like, this is so important. Don't forget. But if you actually get a pad of paper and a pen and write down everything you're thinking, then your brain will say, oh, okay, I don't need to keep rehashing this. It's memorialized. And my sister even somebody gave her a special pen that's got yellow light so that you can take your notes without actually turning on a light and waking yourself up. But that's another way that you're like, okay, my brain can let go because I won't forget something that's important. Because a lot of times it's trying to goad you into doing something. And you're like, I can't do anything. It's 2 a.m.
Right.
The help desk isn't open till 10. So what am I, I can't do anything about it. So writing it down helps your brain calm down.
Wow. And then suggestions of let's say when you're to try and appreciate moments.
Yes. So I have a huge problem with this myself. This is why I wrote Life in 5 Senses, because I realized I was just absentmindedly daydreaming. Just today, I realized I don't like rosemary. Okay. I just noticed this now. I'm like, there's something I don't like. Okay. And then I'm like, you know what I think? And then I'm doing a little bit of sniffing around the kitchen. I'm like, how did I not know this before? Where have I been? Okay, this is how.
Wake up.
So this is where I wrote Life in 5 Senses, because it never even would have occurred to me to try to even do that much sleuthing. But beforehand. But so here's something that's great is just to say, use your five senses and to say, what am I experiencing right here, right now? And really try to, with each of your five senses, this is something people often do as a meditation practice. But even if you're not into meditation, it's something that can work and really ground you. And also something, if you're trying to hang on to a time or an experience, what I love to do is a five senses portrait. So you can do this with other people. You can do this by yourself. It can be of a person, like a person who's died that you want to remember, or it could be of an experience like our trip to France, or, a tradition like our Groundhog Day or whatever it is. And you write down 5 notable memories for seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. And this is super fun to do. It's really fun to do it with other people as well. It's fun to do it as a portrait to give to someone else, like, oh, here's my five senses portrait to you, because you'll really, my daughter did it for me, and I was like, she picked things that I would never have thought of, but they were her notable memories of me, so it made me feel so close to her. Yeah, and then often people will do it about someone who has died. Because it's like, I never want to forget the smell of her baby powder that she kept by her bathtub, or whatever it is, or the smell of their kitchen, or whatever it is. So that's another way of like really forcing yourself to focus in on like memories and experiences. And if it's something about the moment, you could be like, well, what is it like right now? Can I capture this moment right now? Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. And that can often, it's very, very creative. And yet it's, sometimes when you're doing something creative, like your reach, your vision exceeds your capacity to execute, and that's very discouraging and annoying. Even with something like baking cookies. But this is something where you're really just writing down a memory. It's pretty easy to do, but it's very satisfying.
Well, I also heard that from a trauma coach that I went to. She had said that the brain does not know the difference between the imagination and the reality. And so if you are having feelings, a dysregulation, and you want to calm down, you can call up a memory.
Yes.
And when she did it with me, it was about being on a beach in Mallorca. And she said, what do you smell? What are you looking at here? What does it feel like on the sand? And I guess when you have those, when you go there, your brain gets flooded with the chemicals that you would have if you were actually there, which I thought was fascinating.
I never even thought of it, but that's probably one of the reasons that this is such a pleasurable thing, is that you really are putting yourself back into an experience that for whatever reason is important to you.
Well, it's like if I can speak, Jess, or can I?
No, you're allowed. I got what I needed. You can now come join us.
Thank you. First of all, thank you both for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you. I wonder if that's also why, in doctor's office and hospitals, you see pictures of landscapes and, just soothing imagery. It's just like, it's nice to look at. I also feel, Gretchen, that, and I love that you're I love that you're exploring the senses, the five senses. I find sometimes that I have certain sensory issues and sensitivities. And so I can really head into, I know you talk about strengthening our senses and heightening, but sometimes for me, I'm like, I actually have to cut off. A number of sensory experiences because I can go into like total overload and shutdown mode when it's too much for me. Like a TV on in a restaurant.
That's what came over for you.
Oh, I won't go in, or I will. It's not just that I have to have my back to it, but I actually need the person who I'm speaking with to also have their back.
Well, June makes us move tables. Sometimes 4 or 5 times.
Yes.
No, I get it. Do you know like this quiet airport movement? Like San Francisco is a quiet airport where they don't have music playing. Airport. They don't have like all the blaring announcements. It's so much more pleasant. Wow. Because I agree. I agree with you. Like for me, when I'm stressed out, I always want to bring down my sensory. Like I can't have music playing anywhere. I love perfume. I wear perfume to bed at night, but if I'm feeling stressed out, I won't, because it's just like another sensory too much sensory information. But here's one thing I learned that's interesting. For some people, it's just the opposite. They like to bring up their sensory.
Yes.
Like that helps them relax. So blasting music or eating really spicy food or like biting into a lemon. They'll do that. And that for some reason they find that calming. So it's so interesting that what works for one person may not work for another. And so that's one of the reasons we really have to just be aware, like, you can't take a TV in a restaurant and it's like, and I should never say, oh, it's no big deal. Because, well, maybe it's no big deal for me, but for you, it's really, really overwhelming.
And you know that this idea of sort of memorializing or sensory experiences is so beautiful to me, because I am just connecting that my mother who's passed loved onions so much, and onions on everything. And I swear I have a memory of her biting directly into an onion and eating it like an apple. Now, I don't know if that's just like the lore. That's like, it's like sometimes myths take over, and was it true or not? Who knows? But slices of onions. And now I have, at this stage of my life, sort of, I think probably at the age I noticed her eating onions, I'm turning to onions. When I tell you I think about onions, I want, knowing I'm going to have a veggie burger, I'm like, how many onions can I put on? I don't want a salad if it doesn't have onions on it. It's like I have taken over her.
It might be something that connects you to her too. That also
absolutely.
And I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like people wear the perfume of somebody that they loved, or they'll play a music that they associate with somebody that they love. It's a way of bringing their presence closer to us.
I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. Elizabeth, you know I love getting any opportunity to talk about life in 5 senses and how to use the 5 senses to manage stress, remember someone you love. I love talking about the 5 senses.
But Gretchen, what I want to know is, you really just discovered you don't like rosemary?
Okay, yes. Where have I been? Right, I wrote this whole book. Here I am tuning into my senses left and right. And Jamie made some fish. And I was like, there's something that I've had before and I'm having it now and I don't like it. And I went and I just like picked up every herb and everything in the kitchen. And I was like, I don't like this. I do not like rosemary. I think I maybe was distracted by the fact that I like the name.
Well, wait, what about cilantro?
I'm kind of, I can take it or leave it. I'm not one of those people that really doesn't like cilantro. How about you?
Okay. Same.
Yeah, for some people, cilantro tastes soapy, but not to you or me. So we will be back with more from my conversation on the Deep Dive podcast. I want to let you all in on a little secret. We use Fresh Direct and the experience is transformed. Fresh Direct is farm to kitchen. The food is sourced directly from farmers, fishermen, ranchers, delivered straight to your door. And because of this, we're paying for the quality of the food rather than just to have someone go shopping in a store. With the apples, they are so fresh and crisp. The meat is so great. We save so much time every week because we don't have to sift through all this sad-looking produce. Fresh Direct says they're 7 days fresher than the grocery store. And I see the difference in the freshness of our food.
For over 20 years, Fresh Direct has been delivering the freshest fruits, vegetables, and meats to the tri-state area. Don't take our word for it. Try it to believe it with $50 off your first order. Go to freshdirect.com and use code HAPPIER. That's freshdirect.com, code HAPPIER for new customers to save $50 on their first order. Terms and restrictions apply. See site for details.
As parents, we want to set our children up for success. And when they're struggling with a specific subject or they need help with homework, especially if we don't feel equipped to answer, it's very frustrating. Well, IXL Learning is an online learning program for kids. It covers math, language arts, science, and social studies. When she was younger, Eleanor really struggled with math. And I know that when she was trying to keep up with a class, when she was trying to study for a test, IXL would have been exactly the kind of tool she needed.
Don't miss out. 1 in 4 students in the U.S. are learning with IXL. IXL is used in 95 of the top 100 school districts in the U.S. Make an impact on your child's learning. Get IXL now. And Happier with Gretchen Rubin listeners can get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when they sign up today at IXLlearning.com/happier. Visit IXLlearning.com/happier to get the most effective learning program out there at the best price.
Okay, parents, it's back to school time. And that takes some adjustment. Like there's a lot of effort to get back into the routine, and we're all looking for tips to make it easier to get back into the swing of things. And here is a tip for you. Between backpack browsing and outfit arranging, there's a drama-free way to make vitamins part of your children's morning routine. Lil Critters Gummy Vitamins.
My son thinks he's eating fun, delicious gummy bears, all while I know he's getting essential nutrients for his health and development. He is 14, but even at 14, it is so much easier to get him to eat a Lil Critter gummy vitamin than it would be to get him to take a traditional pill. Lil Critters is a pediatrician recommended kids multivitamin gummy brand and the yummy way to start the new school year. Shop now.
Welcome back to my conversation with Jessica St. Clair and Diane Raphael from the Deep Dive podcast. Let's listen.
Gretchen, how did you get into the business of happiness?
Thank you, Jess. Thank you.
I love that. What was it that began your seeking?
So I know exactly the moment. Like I can actually pinpoint when and where I was. So I live in New York City, and I was in the crosstown bus in the pouring rain, and so I was very bored. I had nothing to do. So I looked out the window and I was thinking, what do I want from life anyway? You never have the time to answer yourself these big questions. But here I was stuck in the bus. Thought, well, what do I want from life? I want to be happy. But I realized I didn't spend any time thinking about whether I was happy. What did it even mean to be happy? Can you make yourself happier? Like, is that even possible? And I thought, oh, this is important. I should have a happiness project and figured this out for myself. And the next day I ran to the library and got a giant stack of books about anything I could get about happiness, research and science and, sociology and novels, anything I could get, memoirs. And at first it was just for me. I was finishing up a biography I was writing about John F. Kennedy. And so this was just for me. And I do this all the time. I'll get really preoccupied with a question and I'll do tons of research and take tons of notes. And then sometimes something comes of it, sometimes it doesn't. So this was something that was very familiar to me, that I would just get really interested in something and start reading and taking notes on it. But it just got bigger and bigger. And there were so many things that I wanted to try. I was like, what about this? And I should try that. And then finally I thought, wow, maybe this should be my next book. So then I wrote the book, The Happiness Project. And it's funny because some people said, oh, don't call it The Happiness Project. That sounds like homework. And I was like, that's just kind of what the name of it is, because that's when I had my eureka moment. I thought I should have a happiness project. So I sort of felt like I really wanted to stick with that title. And then it turns out that the subject of happiness, if you think of it very broadly, is so vast. And so fascinating that ever since then, I've just been going deeper into different sort of subtopics within happiness, like how do you form habits, or how do you know yourself better, or how do you think about the 5 senses in a way to make your life better? So that's how I got into it. And I started as a lawyer way back.
Let me ask you one more question, Gretchen, while we have you. I brought this up on the podcast a few weeks ago, Jessica, because it really impacted me, where I was watching the show alone, and okay, and so this show features survivalists who go out, talk about sensory deprivation and heightening, who go out into the wilderness, truly, and survive alone and film themselves. And I was watching one of the women. I'm always sort of obsessed with the women on the show and how they approach that project, the project of being alone. And anyway, this woman was filming herself. She's probably about 54 or so. And she's, so plucky. And every day she's working on a new project. And and such a buoyant energy and such a, I don't know, I just really motivated, really positive. And she talked about, well, I don't know. I think that because her mother had struggled with cancer and she's gone through, she didn't have an easy childhood, had a pretty withholding mother. And she talks about how she just thinks she has more serotonin than other people because she has this outlook. Okay. Yeah. And so I was really impacted by that. And I actually felt badly because I was like, oh my God, maybe I don't have enough serotonin. Maybe it just comes so much easier that like I got to do my workouts and I got to meditate and I got to get journal to get there, and maybe it's as simple as a brain chemistry thing. And then not 2 episodes later, she's filming herself at night. Now, she doesn't realize that alone the show owns all of the footage. So she thought she could just get this particular footage to her husband at home. But there's a big chyron underneath, which is like everything you shoot, we have the right to air. Oh. Okay, so this was what she thought was private. And she's in such a dark moment and is absolutely bereft and is collapsing with the loneliness she's feeling and how miserable it is and how she doesn't want to show it. She doesn't want to show it because she doesn't want to see, they're going to think she's, she doesn't want to cry on the show. And I was like, God damn it. See, we all, anyway, so I was both relieved and I was like, yeah, you can't really have one without the other. It's inside out. It's the, it's the joy and the sadness and how we navigate both. But I'm curious how you have what your thoughts are on just brain chemistry.
Well, what the research suggests is that about 50% of happiness is genetically determined. So some people are born tickers and some people are born Eeyores, and that's pretty hardwired. But there is like 10 to 20% is something called life circumstances. So this is things like health, income, education, marital status, work. And then all the rest is very much influenced with our conscious thoughts and actions. So we don't have total control, as we know, over how happy we are, but we have some control. There are things that we can do with our conscious thoughts and actions. So, for instance, like if you've ever known somebody who absolutely hated their job and then they got a job they liked, it's like their genetics are the same, their life circumstances have changed only slightly, but they are much happier. So there are things that are within our control. But so I think sometimes they talk about a set point that people are sort of at. They kind of always go back to that set point. I think it's more helpful to think of a range. Like maybe I'm 4 to 7, maybe somebody else is 8 to 10. But there are definitely things you can do to push yourself up to the top of your range or like float down to the bottom of your range. And that's what I think we want to do, is be at the top of like our own nature, what's possible given our own nature. But about alone specifically, I'll say there is one thing that ancient philosophers and contemporary scientists agree on, and that is if you had to pick one thing as the secret of happiness, it would be relationships. We are social creatures. We are wired for social engagement. We need strong bonds. We need to be able to confide. We need to feel like we belong. And being alone like that is really, really hard. And just as you were saying that, I'm like, wow, she must be some kind of exception if she's bouncing around under those conditions. Right. So, well, this is the whole thing. Don't compare your outsides to other people's insides, because she was very convincingly presenting something to the camera. It's just not the case. One of the things that's very striking is that even for people who are introverted, they also get it like a boost from making conversation with somebody like the person who's filling their coffee order or the stranger on the street who has the cute dog. Like we do get a lift from that. And I think it's good that you talk about your community too, because I think a lot of people just sort of say technology is bad, social media is bad, these things aren't good. Well, they're like every medicine can become poison. And these things do amplify a lot of things that are negative, but they also are really positive. And I think the idea that you can connect with people who share your concerns, and maybe you can be more open because it's not your best friend who's going to say, oh, how's that problem with your husband going? Or whatever the next time you see them. There is a kind of, one thing that's very striking is people often confide more on it with strangers or passing acquaintances sometimes than they do with their close friends. So I think all these different kinds of social connections can be valuable. Like we just have to think like, is this helping me? Or am I spending all this time on Instagram feeling terrible about myself because I feel like I can't measure up? Like each of us has to face that question for ourselves. But there are great things that can come.
I totally agree. I think communities, if
different kinds
there
of
are micro communities everywhere, and for almost every interest we have now. And yes, the internet has its horrors, but that is one of the most beautiful things that's come out of it, which is that kind of affinity. And you really can be in affinity with so many different types of people.
And you can explore questions you would never ask somebody in your own life, but you can ask the internet, and sometimes people find great comfort there. Not always. We all know the bad stories. But there are good stories too.
There really are. Gretchen, thank you so much for joining us. Please, deep divers, run out and purchase Life in 5 Senses. You can buy it wherever books are sold. And I really recommend, because I was tooling around at GretchenRubin.com to really do a full deep dive into Gretchen's work, because it's just fascinating.
I'm such a big fan. So it was a special treat to get to talk to you myself.
Thank you so much, Gretchen.
Man, this was such a fun conversation. They're these huge stars, but they are so funny and easy to talk to. They're exactly the way you would think they would be. I felt like we could talk all day.
Yeah, and Gretchen, I always love hearing you go back to the beginning and talk about the inspiration for the Happiness Project.
Yeah.
Especially now, because you're kind of starting your Happiness Project all over again with your open door.
Yes, indeed. Well, we hope you're feeling more happier after this episode. It was so fun to revisit this fascinating conversation. We hope you enjoyed it. The best time to start a happiness project is 20 years ago. The second best time is now. From the Onward Project.
Hey ladies, are you ready to discover luxury lingerie that's as empowering as it is beautiful? Let's talk about Gooseberry Intimates, where style meets sustainability. Designed and produced in-house in Bali, Indonesia, Gooseberry Intimates is a woman-founded and family-owned brand. Started by a mother and now led by her daughters, every piece reflects their commitment to elegance and empowerment. What's even more amazing? Their commitment to sustainability. Each lingerie piece is made to order, avoiding mass production and reducing environmental impact. Feel good about what you wear. And speaking of style, Gooseberry Intimates has been featured in Vogue, Glamour, and Cosmopolitan. Ready to elevate your lingerie game with Gooseberry Intimates? Visit their website at gooseberryintimates.com to explore their unique collections and join the movement of fashion-forward sustainability. Use code PODCAST for 10% off your first order, because feeling empowered never looked so good. Gooseberry Intimates, where luxury meets empowerment. Treat yourself today.